In January 2019, Hualien Tzu Chi Hospital opened. Set up 15 years ago as an outpatient department of Hualien Tzu Chi Hospital, it has now officially become Tzu Chi's 7th hospital in Taiwan. The first Tzu Chi Hospital was built in Hualien, eastern Taiwan, where medical resources were scarce. From raising the idea in 1979 to breaking ground in 1984, the whole process was full of twists and turns. At the time, there were only 200 Tzu Chi volunteers and 30,000 plus donating members. To build a general hospital with 600 beds would require 800 million NT dollars. How could a Buddhist nun possibly do it? Was the question asked by many people back then. But Master Cheng Yen was determined. She thought to herself, if I don't do it, who will?
我什么都没有，我只有呢以信使成正，还有命一条。我信我自己无私，我相信人人有爱心，凭这样的信心，所以呢，我要把医院盖起来。
Touched by the Master's compassion, a professor donated a large amount of gold to Tzu Chi. It was the first donation Tzu Chi received for building the hospital. At a leprosy home, a group of residents also pitched in by pooling together their life savings for the construction project. Many Tzu Chi volunteers even did manual labor and worked extra hours every day just to accumulate more money to help Tzu Chi build a hospital in Hualien. I don't know where money is, but I know where love is. This is what Master Cheng Yen firmly believed. And many kind-hearted people indeed responded to the Master's faith by doing what they could to help. With everyone's support, in the midst of all obstacles, Hualien Tzu Chi Hospital was built and opened in 1986. In 1999, in Yuli, a small town over 50 miles away from Hualien, a terminally ill superintendent of a local hospital asked Tzu Chi to take over his hospital and continue to care for the locals after he passed away. On March 15, 1999, Hualien Tzu Chi Hospital opened. In addition to providing emergency service around the clock, the hospital also starts its outpatient service at 7 a.m. so that the early rising farmers in town can see the doctor before going to work in the fields. A few months later, in July 1999, another hospital Tzu Chi took over in Guanshan, Taidong opened. With a complete medical network spanning Hualien and Taidong, Tzu Chi can now better safeguard the health of people in eastern Taiwan. In 2000, thanks to the support of countless kind-hearted people, another Tzu Chi hospital opened in Dalian, southwestern Taiwan. Behind the construction of the hospital, there was a very touching story. To help Tzu Chi build a hospital in Dalian, a volunteer called Lin Shujing first borrowed money to buy a piece of land, and then persuaded her parents-in-law to also donate their family land to Tzu Chi. With the 2 acres of land they donated, Tzu Chi was able to make plans for building a hospital there. When a couple in their 80s learned that Tzu Chi was building a hospital in town, they took an odd job bundling scallions and saved up their earnings. On the day the hospital opened, they came and donated their earnings along with their farmer's pension to the hospital. They said the money was for the hospital to buy a van for transporting elderly patients from nearby villages. But the money they donated was not enough to buy a van. Learning of that, many people pitched in to help fulfill their wish. In the end, the hospital collected enough money to buy 2 vans. The elderly couple's simple act of goodness had created a ripple of love in town and inspired more people to give. Behind every Tzu Chi hospital, there are many heartwarming stories like this to recount, as every Tzu Chi hospital was built with the sweat and love of countless individuals. But why did Tzu Chi build hospitals in the first place? The reason can be traced back to Tzu Chi's early years. Back then, when visiting the needy, Master Cheng Yen came to realize that many people became poor due to illness or vice versa. She concluded that to put an end to poverty, illness needed to be taken care of first. Therefore, in 1972, 6 years after Tzu Chi was founded, a free clinic was set up in Hualien to provide medical services to the poor twice a week. All the doctors, nurses, and pharmacists serving at the free clinic were volunteers. The free clinic remained in service for 15 years until the first Tzu Chi Hospital opened in 1986. But a free clinic, after all, is not the same as a hospital. It could only treat patients with minor ailments, such as a cold, malnutrition, or mild hypertension. Those with major medical conditions still had to be sent to Taipei because Eastern Taiwan's problem of lacking medical resources still remained. This is also why Hualien Tzu Chi Hospital and other Tzu Chi hospitals around Taiwan were set up one by one when needs arose and conditions allowed. In 2005, Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital opened, followed by Taichung Tzu Chi Hospital in 2007. All year round, there are Tzu Chi volunteers serving in Tzu Chi hospitals, working with medical teams to provide the best services to patients. Apart from serving patients in the hospitals, doctors and nurses from the 7 Tzu Chi hospitals also conduct medical outreaches to provide care to people in remote areas. They give selflessly, relieving suffering just like those serving at Tzu Chi's first free clinic set up in 1972. In Mozambique, Africa, a woman carried her baby to receive Tzu Chi's aid supplies. After the country was devastated by Cyclone Idai in March 2019, Tzu Chi conducted several aid distributions to help those affected in Mozambique, like this woman and her family. In May 2019, after Tzu Chi's emergency relief ended, medical staff from Taiwan's Tzu Chi hospitals arrived in Mozambique and worked alongside Tzu Chi's medical volunteers from 6 countries to give 3 large-scale free clinics. In times of disaster, war, or crisis, this is how Tzu Chi's medical staff and volunteers from around the world work together to help those in need of medical attention wherever they are in the world. In 2015, a powerful earthquake struck Nepal. At Tzu Chi's medical station, a boy's screaming pierced the air. His left ring finger had been severed during the quake, and Tzu Chi's medical team was doing their best to treat him. At the other side of the medical station, Tzu Chi's doctors were operating on a patient whose feet were severely injured in the quake. In the middle of the surgery, the power went off, but the doctors continued the operation with the help of a mobile phone flashlight. Tzu Chi's medical volunteers are members of a volunteer group called TIMA, or Tzu Chi International Medical Association. There are now over 8,000 TIMA medical volunteers in 13 countries and regions. As of 2018, they provided free medical services to over 3 million people in 50 countries and regions. How did such a large international group of medical volunteers come about in the first place? Needless to say, it was inspired by Master Cheng Yen's compassion for the poor and ill, and the selfless giving of those serving at the free clinic the Master set up in 1972. Love transcends all boundaries. For decades, Tzu Chi's mission of medicine has benefited numerous people in the aftermath of major calamities around the world. In the decades to come, Tzu Chi's medical staff and volunteers will continue to safeguard more people's health and lives, giving them hope for a brighter future.